Hello and welcome to Scriptonite Reacts. I'm Scriptonite. Today we're going to be watching Castle Rock Season 1 Episode 9. It's called Henry Deaver. It's the penultimate episode of this season and effectively this show as we know it, because it's going to be an anthology series, which means next season we start over with a whole new bunch of characters. But I would like to talk about things that I found interesting, things that I don't yet understand how they fit together, and maybe a little theory. It's not so much is what I would write. If I was writing the show, this is how I would write it. So it's probably safe to say it's not going to happen. There are lots of mysteries in this show. There are like 50 different mysteries, but from my watching, these are my two big mysteries. One, is Ruth Deaver a time walker? She had that conversation with Wendell during the episode called The Queen, which, I don't care what anyone says, that was the best episode of this show by a country mile. So in that episode, Ruth has a conversation with her grandson Wendell. He's talking about his augmented reality video game and about how only time walkers can kill the dead, and they can go back to the past, kill their nemesis and fix the whole timeline. So we're left thinking, is what's happening with Ruth that she is actually a time walker, whatever that is? She can move through space-time. Because we all know there aren't 3 dimensions, that's just all we can perceive. Scientists say there is a 4th dimension called space-time. And in essence, our experience of time is based on the fact that we can't experience the 4th dimension. So we experience moving through time second by second, chronologically. But actually, the theory of the 4th dimension of space-time is that everything and everywhere is happening all at once. There is no yesterday or tomorrow. It just is. So what I was thinking in the early stages of the Ruth episode, before the Time Walker comment actually happened, because of the way that her experience of time was being portrayed, this just seamless moving between one time and another, 2 versions of herself present in the same place at the same time, and seeming to acknowledge each other, and without any kind of surprise or shock, it made me think, imagine if dementia wasn't a disease but a stage of evolution, and it was actually the beginning of human being. This is a very stone thought. It was actually the beginning of human beings being able to sense the 4th dimension, and so our confusion would come from losing our kind of anchor in time that we experience now, whereas we're just moving in one direction. That was just what went through my head at the time. But actually, once Wendell did his time walker thing, it was like, oh my god, maybe Ruth in particular. I mean, I don't think that's actually true about dementia, by the way, or Alzheimer's, but in Ruth's specific case, it's possible. And it would be really great for the story if that were true. And we'd have had multiple hints. This was not the only time Ruth has attempted to fix the timeline. We had that call from Reverend Appleton last episode where he says, you know, your mum's, he's calling Henry, and he said, look, your mum's turned up at the church, she's all confused. She's asking me if Alan Pangborn is dead this time. Or alive this time. This time. Now, yes, that could be Alzheimer's and she's stuck in her own effective time loop, but is actually really just her memories flashing back one after the other. But I think that, in terms of this show, is less interesting writing, actually, than her having some facility around that 4th dimension, around space-time. For most people, the main mystery of this show is the kid and Henry Deaver. And the fact that we have had multiple references to the similarity between the kid and Henry Deaver, the fact that they actually, both of them were in the same places when things went awry. We don't actually know either of their original names. Henry was adopted. His adopted name is Henry Matthew Deaver, which would imply that he had a name change when he was adopted, because Matthew Deaver is his father's name. So we actually don't know Henry's name, and there's been a lot of reference to, you know, you don't know his name, like the idea of the devil, this bad being that no one knows his name. And in the last episode, in the basement with all the paintings, we saw the picture of 1991 Bill Skarsgård, the kid, wearing the jumper that Henry Deaver was wearing in his missing posters. So the questions are obvious. Is the kid actually Henry Deaver? Did they swap consciousnesses? Is Henry Deaver the devil? I feel like Henry Deaver might not actually be Henry Deaver, based mostly on the fact that he says he has no memory from before Alan Pangborn picked him up in the forest, but the kid does. He has memories of Molly as a child that must have come before he was stuck in the cage, because he couldn't possibly have been able to see them from the forest after he was stuck in the cage. And he also says to Henry, I saved you, I got you out of the basement, and I waited 27 years. I feel like the kid might be Henry Deaver, somehow with the consciousness, and I don't know who the fuck is in the body of Henry Deaver. I really don't know if he's a goodie or a baddie yet. I'm more worried that he's a baddie than I am right now than the kid is a baddie. The other question we've got is the basement. Where is this basement that our main characters keep referring to? We know it's not Lacey's basement now. We finally got in through Henry. It's just full of paintings. So I feel like we're going to go back to the Desjardins, and that will be where the basement is, where all of this kicked off. We've also got the throwaway reference of Warden Lacey to the kid when he said to him, hey, like, remember that crazy story you told me? What's that story? I feel like that's going to pay off. We're going to find out what that crazy story is, and that's going to be something to do with explaining the body swap, maybe. Obviously, I actually took the time to watch Needful Things a few weeks back, because I know it was set in Castle Rock, Alan Pangborn was in it, and I just kind of hoped I'd pick up things, but who knows. And obviously, outside of those main mysteries, we've also got Wendell, who's now in Salem's Lot. It's Jerusalem's Lot, but it was shortened to Salem's Lot. It was Stephen King's second book, and it was based on vampires, and that place is just full of all bad juju. And he's just got off a bus in the middle of the night in Bad Juju Central. We also know that he can hear the schisma, and that birds die around him. It feels like quite a few people in this town can hear the schisma, just at different volumes. Molly doesn't appear to hear it unless she's hearing it vicariously through Henry. Alan Pangborn heard it, because that was the schisma that was going on when Alan Pangborn found young Henry on the ice. That noise we heard then, I now realise, is the schisma that we've been referred to later, and we've just heard several characters hear it. Another interesting point is that somehow Del Lacey knew to wear gloves. If you go back and look at the episode where we get kind of more of the background of he's basically explaining to the kid why he took him, You know, you look so small relative to my faith. Now I'm an old man. You look the same, and I'm questioning my faith. I think it was 5 or 6. And he had gloves on, and he deliberately took off the glove and touched the kid. It was like he knew the impact of touching him. And it feels like the kid knows the impact of touching people. So long story short, it feels like things are escalating and coming to a collision point. And if we are heading towards a Needful Things style conflagration, then it's going to get really crazy in Castle Rock. What I would like to see, my dream kind of finish to this, would be that happens. Everything goes to shit in the Henry Kid timeline. Maybe like the baddies win. Meanwhile, Ruth continues to kind of fight her battle as a Time Walker, goes back, kills whoever the nemesis ends up being, whether it's Molly, whether it's the kid, whether it's Henry, whether it's a character we haven't even seen yet, and then it's like peace on Earth. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but that's the best ending I could write. So, without further ado...
God turned his back on this place.
After Deaver talking. Fire.
You remember the helicopter crash? How about the school bus?
Oh my God!
People say it wasn't me. And the thing is, they're right. When I was a boy, my mother told me a story about resurrection. She was young, alone, and convinced the devil had a hold of me.
Oh my God!
A miracle happened. The Lord, He saved both of us that day. He brought me back from the dead, like His only Son. I dedicated the rest of my life to His grace, to fighting this great battle, to hearing His voice. And then one day, one terrible day,
He built the cage!
God answered.
What? What?
We don't notice we're doing it, but we are placing events in sequence so that our lives make sense. When continuity is interrupted, everything starts to slide. Planning and problem solving gone. And ultimately, confusion with time and space. That is the story of Alzheimer's disease. Or rather, it has been, until now. Now, Puck was born with a strong genetic predisposition for FCD, very similar to Alzheimer's pathologically.
Wait, pause. The kid said to Alan he could help Ruth, and this version of him is an expert in Alzheimer's. Are we in a multiverse? What's going on? Okay, play.
Apathy, confusion, spatial disorientation.
That was before we put our hippocampal implant in his brain. Puck here is a miracle. Puck is finally in command of his arch narrative again.
Puck.
You see, Alzheimer's jumbles your story, and
Puck.
well, it turns off the lights. We turn the lights back on.
Hey, it's the 20th today, isn't it? Aren't you supposed to,
Yes, tomorrow.
Yeah? Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Patience is a...
It's not my strong suit.
Hold on.
Hey, is everything okay?
Not exactly. I've got some bad news.
Is it Mom?
Ruth is fine.
Alan!
It's about your dad.
He's Henry Deaver, isn't he? What's going on? Oh my god! Look at this story in Castle Rock! Look at the town! See that full harvest festival? It's the church. This is like how our Henry Deaver entered town, but he walked through a shit heap. This has got to be a multiverse. There has got to be a different... Hello? Look at the state of everything.
What do we say? It's a heartbreak. The book says death is swallowed up in victory.
Was that Molly? Walking up the hill looking in the right state?
Are you...
Bridget. Market must be crazy if guys like you are looking at a
It's
dump
her
like
sister.
that.
They really look like this.
Two other
too.
speculators were in from Portland just yesterday. You guys scanned the obits, right?
Uh,
Because I heard that he actually did it out on the lake. Like...
Molly?
Hey.
Molly.
Henry Deaver?
I knew it. I knew we should have taken him literally. When he said at the beginning, Henry Deaver to the Warden thing, you know.
Here we go.
Look at you.
What?
You're like the mayor.
Please. Council chair. It's real power.
You used to be so shy when we were kids.
People change, you know?
Your sister seems about the same.
Yeah, I guess the lucky ones change. The unlucky ones cheat on their husbands at a middle school math conference and end up couch surfing at their sister's house for a year.
Oh my god.
How's your mom?
You know who she lives with? Ellen Pangborn.
The old sheriff?
Yeah. They had a kind of star-crossed thing back in the day.
Oh.
He was the one who convinced her to leave my dad. A few days after we ran off to Boston, Alan shows up at the door.
Balls! Now in the episode of The Queen, we had that moment where Ruth was packing her bag and past Ruth was packing her bag. Our current Ruth was saying, just leave him, just leave him. In this version, she did just leave him. And she got with Alan Pangborn. And they brought up Henry. But it's a different Henry. And Matthew Deaver's still alive because it's a different Henry. And he's just shot himself. Okay. So we have got different timelines. And like different routes off of each of those timelines. And we've been told that the schisma is the sound of the universe trying to reconcile those issues with space-time. And everyone is hearing it in the shitty Castle Rock, which would imply they're like crashing into each other. That's how come that Henry Deaver is in our shitty Castle Rock timeline. Wow. Play.
She has Alzheimer's.
Oh, no.
But she's the reason why I got into the field, of course.
Of course.
One more thing I owe her. My dad was nuts for who knows how long. So why'd he blow his head off now? Did you ever talk to him?
After he left the church, I don't think he talked to anyone.
Wow.
Do you remember the flashlights?
Of course I do.
You always knew when I was up. Even when my light was off, you always knew. You knew a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a real busybody. I always have been.
Bullshit! It's really good seeing you,
Yeah.
Molly.
This Henry Deaver is so much nicer, though. He is, though, isn't he?
Shit.
What?
Light just blew a fuse. I don't even know where the box is. Today is tomorrow, the 21st, so,
No, it hasn't come yet.
Then you're late.
By one day.
Yeah, but,
They're expecting. Fuck, the basement.
First month of trying. Yeah, I know, but, I'm just,
Not the basement in that house,
I
surely.
have a feeling.
I love you, Mary.
I can see the cage.
I love you.
Oh my god! That was.
When was last?
I don't know. When I was about his age.
Zalewski. He's a cop?
Not saying anything yet. I mean, besides your name.
What?
How was he fucked up?
He thought he heard the voice of God in the woods. He used to drag me out there in the dead of night, middle of winter. March me around, hoping I'd hear it too.
Did you?
Hey, stop! Come back here!
Where was he trying to go?
Shit. So, Matthew Deaver, Dale Lacey are like swapped over in this timeline. Matthew Deaver's the one that kidnaps the boy and then kills.
Forest fires took near 1,000 acres. The drunk helicopter pilot had killed him. And in the town plaza, the school bus and all those sweet children died on the track. $1,437. Oh my god. Week 1. Get week 1. And there he was. He looks at me. He looks at the bat, just as scared as can be. He looks caught. But can you blame him? He's between a man with a bat and those woods he just came from. And, well, I'll tell you, he wasn't the only one scared. I promise you, I reached for the phone. I was gonna call the police, child service, the cavalry, and then he starts saying, "I heard it, Dad. It was so loud, Dad. It was all around us, in my head, and it was too much. And then you were gone, and then I was gone, and I woke up in the forest, but suddenly there was no more snow, and then I walked into town, and it looked different. Castle Rock, but different. And not one person in town knew me." But that's what he said. It's not making a lick of sense. And then he tells me a story.
A crazy story.
He says he's my son, Henry, adopted. He tells me a story that the two of us went to pray in Castle Woods, that we were out there, he says, to listen for him.
Oh my god.
And he heard it. He said he'd really heard it. No fooling this time. None of his mother's trickery and deceit. And there, right there, he got me, because who would know that? Who could possibly know that that woman tried to trick me? Did I test him more? Of course.
Pause. The crazy story. They've swapped. Little boy Henry Deaver is laying out the crazy story to Matthew Deaver, which is, I'm your son, you took me out to the forest, I heard it, it was overwhelmingly loud, it was a bright light or whatever, and I woke up in the forest and all of the snow was gone. And I walked through the town and it just looked different, nobody knew where I was. And then other Henry, I'm assuming at some point is going to crash into Dale Lacey. He's going to end up in a basement and he's going to try and explain to him, look, I'm this scientist, I'm studying Alzheimer's, this is what's happened to me, I've crossed over into an alternative Castle Rock, I'm from another... Now, he lets Henry out in this timeline, which means Henry can get back to the forest and maybe wiggle back through space-time to other Castle Rock, meaning both Henry Deavers, because somehow this Henry Deaver has got to get across to Bad Castle Rock. They're both going there is the point. And when they're there, Dale Lacey is going to put Bill Skarsgård Henry Deaver locked up, and little Henry is going to go home. There's going to be no Henry Deaver in this timeline anymore, because both of them... Oh my god. Shit. Play.
I did. I asked him how I like my eggs cooked over the propane stove. The name we gave to the bend in the view. He knew it. And it was then I realized what I'd done. I'd wished, not prayed, wished, desired for this, just this.
What?
And here it was, like I'd ordered it off the damn TV. Well, we know just who that is, don't we? Who gives you what you wish when you need it most, with just a string or three attached? I know him well.
He thinks he's the devil.